my mom started telling me what was going on. The doctors came in and told me what they believe had happened to me, and they even gave my husband a polygraph test, and he passed it. That's how good he was. But they, I had a long road to recovery.
You had a major life-changing incident that happened, and when I met you and you were telling me a little bit about your story, you had said that you you basically, your life, you were in a coma, and they never thought you were going to come back from that. What can you tell us about that particular incident?
The weekend before Easter, I just wasn't feeling right. I called in sick Friday night, Thursday night, and Friday night. And Friday, I couldn't get up out of bed without falling. I was falling into things. I was disoriented. My husband said, just go back to bed, just go back to bed. And that Saturday night, the night before Easter, I went to bed and he called him and I snuggled up next to him, and that was the last thing that I remember until a little over a month and a half later. And some of the reasons, because of my speech and everything, I suffered 4 major strokes. I had grand mal seizures, and instead of calling an ambulance, my husband went and woke my grandson up and he said, we gotta take your grandma to the hospital. She's bad sick. And he cleaned me up and put me in the truck. And one of the biggest mistakes that he made is he took me to my hospital, the hospital where I worked at. I worked in ICU and emergency room. So when he dropped me off at the emergency room and had to leave to go home and clean the house, people in the emergency room immediately called the police. They knew something was wrong. I looked like I'd had the crap literally beaten out of me, and I coded I believe 2 times in the emergency room and 2 times in the ICU, and they transferred me to Vanderbilt at Nashville, where I had some of the top doctors in the United States working on my case.
So what does that mean to be coded?
My heart stopped. They had to bring me back to life. I died. So
2 times.
4 times. Two in
Four.
the 2 in the emergency room and 2 in the ICU. And so once they got me stabilized in the ICU, they transferred me to Vanderbilt, which is one of the best hospitals in the United States. And they did every test known to man. They couldn't figure it out, and in the meantime, they sent the police out to my house to just look things over, and really didn't find anything out of the ordinary, except my husband had never laid a hand on me. But one thing that they found profound, but it didn't come into play at this time, we had a garage, but there was antifreeze underneath the kitchen sink, and that was just kind of passed over, and they were more worried about all my bruising and everything, and the poisoning had caused me to have rare blood infection called ITTB. It's in thrombone. I mean, cytopenia priae. I mean, you touch me and I would bruise wherever you would touch me. So with me falling constantly for 2 days, of course I looked, like I had been beaten up. But by the time process of elimination, the doctors had tested and tested. I was being transfused around the clock. I was on dialysis around the clock. I was in total renal failure. And my mother's a nurse, and she came and she was sitting with me, and the doctors are, there's no hope. And by the time they figured out what it was, they couldn't prove it, because antifreeze is very prevalently used because it only stays in your system like two days. That's why so many people use it to kill animals. But thank God since then the compound has been improved. It's got a very distinctive odor, very distinctive taste. Back then it had a sweet, so you wouldn't taste it in food. He was slowly putting in my food, and for how long, I don't know.
So hold on a second here. So you mean to say, like, you had what you thought was this completely perfect storybook like marriage, and you thought this was the greatest thing. Your husband's cooking for you, whatnot. Life is good. All of a sudden, you feel really sick, and you're falling all over the place, and you're wondering what the heck is going on, and then you end up in the hospital, and you find this out.
Well, I was in a coma this whole time. This is what I was told after the fact. For a month and a half, I had no clue as to what was going on. And also, I might add, my husband wanted a baby. And he was younger than me, and I wasn't able to do that. And he wanted my grandson to raise him as his own son, which I found out later, too. But the doctors kept, my whole family was there around me, and they gave me my last rites. This went on like a month and a half, and my mom just said, give her one more day, give her one more day. And the doctor said there is no brain activity. They were still transfusing me around the clock, on dialysis around the clock. And my mom was sitting on my right side, and due to the fact or my left side, due to the fact of all the steroids they're giving me, one of the residuals I got is I lost complete hearing in my right side. When the doctors would come in the room, they would talk, but they'd be on my right side. So there was no reaction. My mom would sit on this side and talk to me, and she said she could see. She could see reactions. And she had my brothers doing range of motion. I have 5 brothers. They were doing range of motion on my arms and my legs to keep them moving, because when you're in a comatose state, you atrophy. You atrophy so quickly, and the doctors kept telling me, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. She's gone. She's gone. So they finally got to the point where they were going. My parents went home to Michigan to make my funeral arrangements, and they came in and gave me my last rites. And one of my brothers said, I've got an idea. He said, instead of giving her last rites, why don't we lay hands on her and pray for her? You know? So that went on. Then my parents went home, and while they were gone, this is a month and a half later, and this is the middle of May now. It's my birthday, and they started pulling the breathing tubes out, and that's why I have such a raspy voice. They were there so long they grew around my throat, and it caused major scar tissue. But when they were pulling it out, I started breathing against it, because they were taking my breathing apparatus away. And I woke up, and I had no idea what was going on. And they're pulling out because they were going to trach me and basically put me on a shelf until my parents, came, and, they, like I said, they pull the plug, throw the switch, whichever you may call it. And my aunt is a freight driver. They had her set up to transport my body back to Michigan, and I came out of it, and I was clueless. I didn't know what had happened, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat. They gave me some, and I couldn't pick up a spoon. But they brought the police in. The police obviously wanted to question me and asked me, did my husband ever hit me? Was he ever me? I'm like, no. And when they told me what they had found, I didn't believe it. I chose not to believe it. I said, no, no. And he was there. He was there.
What was going through your head in that moment when you woke up? What do you recall?
I saw my family standing around me, and I said, when I had a first lucid thought was, did Lance William get his Easter? And then it was, I couldn't talk, so I couldn't ask what was going on, but like I said, it was like I was in a spaceship or something. All those machines and the dialysis and the blood coming and going in and going out, and I mean, it was kind of nightmarish at first, very
Yeah.
confusing. I I just did the best I could with what I had at that time, but I had no understanding of what was going on.
Right. And then who did start to or who did tell you what was going on?
Well, my parents, or well, my mom started telling me what was going on. The doctors came in and told me what they believe had happened to me, and they even gave my husband a polygraph test, and he passed it. That's how good he was. But
Wow.
they, I had a long road to recovery. As soon as I became lucid enough, the police wanted to talk to me. I couldn't talk to them, but I could. But my brothers, they were very
Assisting.
instrumental in letting me know exactly what had happened, or what went down, what it what they believed at the time, because they were never able to prove it,
Right.
because it had already been out of my system. But it was only by the process of elimination and being in the hospital for a month and a half that they found it out. By the time they had figured it out, it was too late to prosecute him. There was nothing to prosecute him on, because they couldn't prove it. It was it was completely out of my system. But they still questioned the fact, why, if you have a garage, do you have antifreeze underneath your kitchen sink?
Yeah.
But I guess he had all the right answers, all the right questions, because happened. Nothing ever happened to him over this.
Okay, so then they're questioning you. They come in there to ask you questions, asking you like how he is to you and if he beats you and all this other stuff and you're like, "No." So like what was that like to all of a sudden, even have this curiosity as to whether or not he did do something to you? What was that like?
I can't. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't. I refused to believe it. I refused to
Yeah.
believe it, because I was in love with this man.
Yeah.
Very much in love with this man.
Yeah. So, how would you describe then the feelings that you were experiencing in that moment when they're asking you these questions and telling you this?
Upset, mad, um, bewildered. Because they were they were stating facts to me, but I was not accepting those facts. I didn't want to accept those facts at the time, but
Yeah.
it was a lot. It was a lot to take in all at once. I was still on dialysis. They told me I'd be on dialysis for the rest of my life. My kidneys only work at 40% today. That I would have to have transfusions every so often to live. I was skinny as a rail. But then they transferred me to my hospital, back to Murfreesboro, for rehab. And of course, I knew everybody, and I knew all the patients. And I, soon went from in my wheelchair to walking my wheelchair around, and actually rehabbed myself rather quickly. From being in the Marine Corps, I just have a determination, and it was, like I said, I at one point I really didn't have a whole lot to live for, but I damn sure knew I didn't want to die, and that
Mm.
was, there was something bigger, and God saved me for some reason, and I was always all my life I wondered what my purpose is, and now
Mm.
I know what my purpose is.
What even allowed you to be able to tap into that in that moment when you're feeling like you pretty much are knocked down?
Belief in a higher power, my grandson, I still had custody of him, and his mama was on the run doing whatever she was doing, and I had to take care of him, and just the sheer will to live, to exist.
And you said, well, I didn't have much to live for, but I knew I didn't want to die. What did you want to live for?
Well, like I said, wanted to live for my grandson, my other grandchildren, and believe it or not, at the time, I still wanted to live for him.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to come to terms with that and get over that, and it took me from getting away from there to get away from that.
And then you're going through the rehab process, and like you said, you're still loving this guy, this man, and you know in the back of your mind, or you suspect it, I guess, while you're going through this recovery process. At what point did that change for you with respect to him?
When he started sleeping with my caregiver, and
Mm.
and it was my brother's girlfriend who he had brought down to take care of me, and he was sleeping with her, and it was just all it got very messy, and I ended up having to go back to Michigan at 42 and move back in with my parents with my grandson, and I was still recovering, and I was still sick, and I ended up in an assisted living home and ended up going septic there, so I ended up back in the hospital again and being very, very, very close to death. I have bleeding ulcers, and the assisted living wasn't placed well. I was son winter, so they weren't taking care of me, and so I was back in the hospital for about a week and a half, and I basically, had to start it all over again. And I went from there to staying with one of my brothers in Tennessee, and I had a walker, and I was on, after all this happened, I finally got off dialysis. That was a miracle in itself. But I was on like 26 different medications, Shelly-Anne. And I just went to my doctor the other day. I am currently on 6 medications, 3 of which are vitamins and so
Huge.
yeah. So we came to Florida, and people remember me when I came to Florida crawling to the beach because I couldn't walk and my wheelchair wouldn't go that way. And I saw a girl on the beach walking with a pair of ski poles. And I was like, oh, it's a good idea. You know how hard it is to find ski poles in Florida? but I found some at a thrift store, and step by step I started walking, and I I had 4 major strokes, so I didn't have a driver's license. So for 8 years I walked. And halfway in between there I had to have back surgery because of all the damage and everything that had been done. But I always kept walking, and I just persevered, one step at a time. Yeah, I'd be out there in the winter in my winter coat and my tennis shoes and walking on the beach in the soft sand. And I got to where I was walking 5 to 10 miles a day every day.
So you go from literally not being able to walk at all to pushing your wheelchair to dragging yourself out onto the sand and then getting ski poles and getting yourself back to that point of which you can walk. And like you literally recovered from this like by putting one foot in front of the other.
It's been a long road. This happened in 2008, so, but I would walk a little ways, and I would find a little piece of driftwood. I had markers all along places where I could sit, every little way I could sit. Little places like a rock or a stump, little places I could sit along the way. And then I had my back surgery, and that improved everything for me a whole lot. And
Yeah. Wow. Like I just hear determination, perseverance in every single step that you have taken here, Terry. Wow.
I'm worthy. I'm enough. I'm I deserve to be alive. What happened to me was not my fault. And I'd encourage other people out there that have similar situations. It's not your fault. Don't give up. Don't let someone else predetermine your fate or your destination, because life is a journey. It's not a destination. And don't ever let anyone ever take that away from you.
How do you even have that kind of a positive attitude after all of this?
I work a good program, and I have a good God in my life. I have an amazing higher power, and I work with other women and help them along their journey as well.
Yeah, and you had said something about that. You said, "Well, I feel like I was spared here, and like I am alive because there was something more for me, a deeper purpose that I was meant to fulfill." And what do you believe that is?
To be a maximum service to God and my fellow man, and help the next human being and do the next right thing, and it all falls into place. And I'm happy to report, the year 2021 sucked because of COVID, and for a lot of people, but actually it was a wonderful year for me. I actually got my driver's license back. I've got a vehicle, and I mean, it's opened up my whole world. I have a whole new freedom having it, and I have a nice little convertible car to drive around the beach, and I've got a job to pay for it. I'm retired, but I'm working to better myself. So
This story, when I remember when you first told it to me, and I just kept thinking to myself, wow, like this woman has got to really want to live in order to just continue to keep taking these steps. And and it sounds like you have an incredibly beautiful and meaningful life now. And so it's a good thing that you did keep fighting for it. What I'm curious as to, like, how did you get over the fact that this happened to you?
Um, it took me. It literally took me 10 years to get over him. I met I met someone else, and that made me feel worthy. That made me feel pretty. That made me made me feel like a woman again. Because up until this point, I didn't care about my makeup, I didn't care about my hair, I didn't care how I dressed or everything. And that person today is my best friend.
And so when you think about, like, what's next for you, what is next?
Shelly-Anne, I really don't know. I mean, the sky is the limit. I'm so blessed today. I'm blessed with best friends. I'm blessed with a loving dog, and I have everything that I need and most of what I want. And it wasn't my plan to live on the Gulf of Mexico until the day that I die, but God saw fit for that to happen for me, and I'm grateful. I am so grateful for that. I mean, what a better place to be. I mean, you've been here, you know how beautiful it is.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you live in this beautiful spot right on the beach. And, what's that like for you to look out every day and see that beach that you recovered on every day?
Grateful, gratitude.
Yeah. How do you take care of yourself now and continue to heal from this experience?
Well, all that walking that I did, I was sharing with a friend the other day. I took her hardly for a long walk. I said, I really don't like to walk that much, but I'm still walking and I'm still moving forward, and I will continue, to do so. God willing, as long as I'm able.
What is it you want to be remembered for in all of this, Terry?
I just want, well, when I pass, I just want people to remember me, that maybe I made their life a little better, a little brighter, and when they think of me, they'll smile.
When you think about advice to other people out there who might be listening to this story of yours, who are going through maybe a challenging medical condition or a really tough time in their life and they feel like giving up, what would you say to them?
Reach way down in your heart and believe with all your soul and fight with everything that you have in you, because there are people on this earth who love you and who want to see you succeed, and just never give up. Never give up. And that's the way I feel to my last breath. Never give up. And when my time comes, I'll be ready for it.
Hmm.
But it wasn't my time. It was not my
Yeah,
time.
obviously, because that was quite a few years ago. And here you are, alive and vibrant and living this incredible life on the beach in sunny
I'm
Florida.
living my best life. I really and truly am living my best life.
Yeah. What gives you the most joy in your life right now?
Watching other people recover. Um,
Hmm.
to get joy back in their life, to see that, if you do the next right thing and help the next human being, that everything will be okay. And if you live it in God's glory, He will protect you, and it will all work out the way that it's supposed to be. That's the way that I believe. I believe it's all planned already. We just gotta help it along the way. We have to do the footwork.
How do you feel about letting a new man into your life now, considering all that you've come through here?
I'm happy by myself. I am truly, really happy by myself. I have a relationship with myself that I've never had. I have more than enough love in my life, to compensate for a relationship. They get
Yeah.
complicated, and
Yeah.
I like to keep it simple today.
Well, but I guess I'm curious, like, do you think you could ever trust again?
I think I've learned that yes, I can, but I am. I don't. It sounds so cliche saying I'll think twice about it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more aware today, and I'm more cautious today, and especially in this day and age, aware of my surroundings and what people's motives really are.
Yeah.
You have to look what people's underlying motives are, and I try and stay away from negative people. That just doesn't have any room in my life today, and I try and keep drama at bay as much as possible.
Sounds like a pretty good philosophy to me. Do you forgive for this particular situation? Do you forgive
Always,
him?
always, always, always forgive. Resentment, a resentment will eat you inside and out. And in order to be forgiven, we have to forgive. And I have made my amends to him. He never has to me, and I don't think he will ever admit it. But
Yeah.
yes, I today I have a forgiving soul and a forgiving heart because I have to do that for me and for my peace of mind and my well being, and my higher power, which I choose to call God, forgives me for all my misgivings. Who am I to say that I can't forgive someone else?
Mm. Wow, and forgiveness, I mean, it's such a hard thing to do. I think we know intellectually that it's a good thing, but like if someone out there is having a hard time forgiving, what advice would you give to them?
Just reach in your heart and say a little prayer for that person, because you never know what's in that person's heart, what that person's been through, what journey they've been on, what they've been put through, what they've come through and what they've had to live with. We never know. Angels come in all forms.
That's a beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much, Terry, for taking the time to share your story. And I know it's going to touch the lives and hearts of so many people who listen. So thank you very much for being here today and sharing.
Thank you, Shelly-Anne. I love you.
Love you too, my friend. Thank you.
Come and see me.